Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Memches Amud Beis, the second line from the top. At the end of last time, we learned a mimer that said, "Haposeach beis hatzovar b'Shabbos chayiv chatos." If a person takes a beged and he now causes there to be a collar, he opens up the beged in such a way that he can now wear the beged. He's over an Isser Deraisa of Makeh Bepatish because he was Mesaken a Mona. The Gemara explained the reason being because this beged was Nerag and it was Kuloi Chibur Achas. It was one Chibur. Therefore he's Chayiv Chatos. Now the Gemara, Agav, the Inyan of Chibur, speaks about the Chibur in regards to Kalim that are Mekabel Tuma. In general, a Kli, even one area of the kli that it touches, let's say a sheret, and becomes tameh, the entire kli, of course, is now tameh. But what happens if you have an attachment to that kli? Is that attachment also going to become tameh or not? So it depends if it's nechshav a chibur or not. Not only physically, but halachically, it has to have what's called a chibur, a connection, in order then to be considered to be one kli. Says the Gemara, Rami le Rabbi Yirmiyahu Rav Zera. Rabbi Yirmiyahu, he asked the following contradiction to Rabbi Zera. Bring a Mishnah from Uksin. Tanan, it says, Shlal shel koivsin. It says that if there were stitches that the koives, the launderer made, what they would do is they would take a big beged and they would attach it, they would stitch it temporarily to a small beged, that the small beged should not become lost. Or he temporarily took a keychain. He took two woolen begeds and he then stitched with linen string. That's also temporary because of course a person cannot wear kilayim. It's an isser of shatnez, wool and linen together. So this is also only temporary. The Mishnah continues and says, these two begadim, let's say in the case of the koives, this beged that becomes tameh, let's say when a sheretz touches it, it will also metame the other beged. However, that's so long as he didn't maschil lahatir. Since it's a kesher she'eno kayama, it's only temporary, he can make matir. If he begins being matir and undoes the stitching, then that already becomes two separate begadim, and if a sheretz is metame one beged, it's not metame the second beged. But so long as he didn't begin to be matir, to undo the attachment, the kesher, then it's going to be makabel tuma. The Gemara now is medayik, alma shaloi b'shas melacha nami chibur. Even when it's not during the time of melacha, still it's considered to be a chibur, and therefore both begadim, when one becomes tameh, the other one becomes also tameh. V'raminu, we have the following Mishnah that says in Kalim differently. L'chara, makel she'osa yad lekardoim. If you have a stick, now a pshutei kli eitz, that means a wooden stick that doesn't have a receptacle, is not mekabel tuma on its own. But if it is attached in a certain way of a chibur to a kli, and that kli is mekabel tuma, thereby the stick will also mekabel the tuma. Says the Mishnah, if you have an axe that has a hole, there you put a stick in it, but you didn't fasten it, so it's only a temporary putting of that stick. It says over here in the Mishnah, chibur letuma b'shas malacha. The Mishnah says it's going to become a chibur letuma. Even the stick will become a kabel tuma when, let's say, the sheretz were to touch the axe. But that's during the time of malacha, because it's assumed that immediately afterwards, since he didn't fasten the stick into the axe, therefore he's going to then remove the stick from the axe. So after the malacha, is not going to then become a kabel tuma, only during the shas of the malacha. B'shas malacha in, shalosh b'shas malacha loy. Only during the time that malacha is taking place, then it will makabel tuma. But afterwards, when it's no longer then in the middle of the malacha, at that point in time, it's also then not going to the makabel tuma. So we have what seems to be a contradiction. On the one hand, the Mishnah in Uksin says that even Shaloi b'shas malacha, there's a chibur, and it's mekabel tuma, the attachment. And yet over here in Kalim, we see the opposite, that once there is an attachment, it's only a temporary attachment during shas malacha, but not shas malacha, it's not mekabel tuma, there's no chibur. Omar lei, hasam shaloi b'shas malacha, Adam asui lezarka lebena eitzim. The difference is that when it comes to the axe, when it's not shas malachi, he takes the wood and he throws it with the other pieces of wood. He's no longer interested in it, and therefore there's no chibur when it's not shas malachi, even if it's still attached. But hacha, in regard to the launderer, shaloi b'shas malacha nami nechale di'imetanfu hodar mechaver. Because if indeed the beggar becomes dirty, he'll go ahead and re-launder it. And therefore, it's considered to be a chibur afilu shelo b'shas malacha. Says the Gemara Vayter, Besura masnu lo hashmaitza mishmei derav Chisda. In Surah, the city in Bavel, they taught the following halach in the name of Rav Chisda. Bepompedisa masnu mishmei derav Kahana v'amri mishmei derava. In the city of Pompedisa, they taught in the name of Rav Kahana, and some say in the name of Rava. Man tana homilso de amurabonon kol hamechuber loy harehu kamayu. Who is the Tana that ascribes to this shita that so long as there is a chibur, then the other kli that is attached will also become tamei? Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Yehuda, Rav, Rabbi Meir he. It's Rabbi Meir who holds that indeed there's such a thing as chibur, a connection, that whereby when one item is going to be tamei, the other item that is attached will also become tamei. This not, like it says in the following Mishnah, also a Mishnah in Kalim. Beis hapach, if you have an oil flask that is a holder, ubeis hatavlin, or you have a holder of different types of spices, ubeis haner, or you have a holder for a ner shebakira. All of these things are attachments alongside the kira, the tanor, the kira. They're attached temporarily to this, not temporarily, they're attached to the side, either because you want to warm up the oil, or you want that there should be tavlin available to then when you cook inside of that kira, or that there should be light, providing light, and therefore there's attachment for the ner. It says over in the Mishnah, metamin b'maga, then metamin ba'avir, div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says, if it's metamin, let's say the kli, the kira becomes tameh because a sheretz goes in the airspace of the kira, which is an earthen vessel kira, so that is metameh the kira. It will also metameh the attachment as well. However, if it touches the kira, it will not metameh. It will only metameh the kira, but not metameh the attachment. Those are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon is cholek. Rabbi Shimon metaher. The Gemara understands Rabbi Shimon quite clearly. B'shlomo Rabbi Shimon kisover lav ki kira damo, because he holds that the attachment is not the kira, and therefore it's understood if the kira becomes tamei, the attachment does not become tamei. There's a Gemara, Rabbi Meir, kira damu afilu ba'avir namin litmoy. If it's like a kira, then why doesn't the attachment become tamei the entire way? When the kira becomes tamei, when the sheretz comes into the avir, being metameh the kira, why is it also not metameh the attachment? And ilav kira damu afilu b'maga nami lo litmo. And on the other hand, if it's not like the kira, so even when it touches the sheretz touches the kira and is metameh the kira, so then it should not metameh the attachment. In other words, the Gemara is trying to understand the shita of Rabbi Meir. If indeed it's like one kli together with the kira, so then why do we make a chiluk between when it's then becoming tameh by touching it versus when it's not becoming tameh when it goes into the avir, the airspace of the kira? And if it's indeed not together as one kli with the kira, so then even when it's touching, the sheretz would be touching the kira and is metame the kira, it should not metame the attachment. Answers the Gemara, la'olam lav ki kira dama. Really, midi araisa, it's not a kira. The kira is the kira, and the attachment is separate. It's not coming to help the cooking. It's not coming to assist in any which way the kira. The Rabbanan who the gazrubu, but the Rabbanan made a gezerah. I gazrubu who asked the Gemara, afilu ba'avir nami litzmoi. So good. After the Chacham made a gezerah and said that indeed, if a sheretz were metame the kira or metame the attachment as well. So then ask the Gemara, why not be consistent and say, when the kira becomes tameh through the avir, why isn't it also not metame the attachment? Says the Gemara, Avdu behu rabbanon hekera. The Rabbanon want to make a heker. Ki hechi de lo osi le misraf ale chuma v'kochim. As not to come to then burn chuma and kochim. In other words, the Chachamim saw that if they didn't make this distinction, people would think that this is a regular kira, just like if the kira becomes tameh, thereby the attachment becomes tameh. And therefore, just like if there is truma or kashim to become tameh from the attachment, then it has to be burned. Therefore, they made a distinction. They said, no, when it comes to then the attachment, the only way the attachment is going to become tameh through the kira is if a sheretz touches the kira, but not if it goes in the airspace. Thereby, a person will understand that this is only then rabbinic, whereby they're not going to then be soref, kachim, or truma to become tameh. Ton Rabbanon, the Gemara now brings a brisa, mispara shaprokim. If there's scissors that have two different blades that are temporarily put together when they're used to then make a haircut, the izmel shavahitni, and similar when you have two different blades that are coming to be used by a carpenter. Again, only a temporary type of attachment. Chibur letuma, vein chibur lehazah. Over here it says in this brisa that there is a chibur, there's a connection when it comes to b'metame. That means if a sheretz were to touch one blade, it will metame the other blade. However, when it comes to metaher that one blade, ayidei the ether of paraduma, by sprinkling the paraduma, it will then only metire that one blade, but not metire the second blade. Ask the Gemara Monavshach, however which way you want to say, there's a problem here. If there indeed is a chibur, a connection, then be consistent, say that it'll also then be able to be a chibur to metire the second blade. Ilav chibur hu afilu tuma nami loy. And if it's not a chibur, there's no connection, then it shouldn't metame the second blade either. Omara divrei Torah, dvar Torah. That min haTorah b'shas malacha chibur bein tuma bein lahazor. Min haTorah, there's a chibur at the time of malacha, whether to metame the second blade or to metire the second blade. But if it's not attached, then there will not be a chibur, not to metame the second blade and not to metire the second blade. Because Rabbanan al tuma shelo b'shas malacha, whereas the Rabbanan came and they made a gezerah on tuma that is not b'shas malacha, mishum tuma sheb'shas malacha, because of the tuma that the Torah says there's going to be a tuma on the second blade when the first blade becomes tamid. Then they made it a gezerah to be machmir even when it's not shas malacha. And also similarly, v'al hazor sheb'shas malacha mishum hazor shelo b'shas malacha. They did a chumrah that midiaraisa, that when indeed it's not time of malacha, there is no hazor for the second blade. Therefore, they said even b'shas malacha, they were a chumrah and said it will not be metire the second blade even when it's attached b'shas malacha. So it comes out over here that the Gemara is saying that the Chachamim were machmir. They were concerned that indeed, if we treat this like midiaraisa, then a person will then come to metame the second blade even when will come to metire the second blade even when it's not b'shas malacha. So therefore, they were machmir in both sides. They were machmir to metame the second blade, even when it's not b'shas malacha, and they were coming to machmir to metire the second blade, to not be able to metire the second blade, even when it's attached and it's b'shas the malacha. Shabbat.